Hello, my name is Eugene Astapov, and I am the RBC Associate Composer Conductor of Esprit Orchestra. I would like to welcome our online audiences to another episode of our interactive series featuring some of the freshest voices in the contemporary music of Canada. And so today with me, I have such one brilliant composer, Stephanie Orlando, who has been commissioned by Esprit, and we are here to talk about the piece that she is currently working on for the orchestra. Hello, Stephanie. It is
Hey
very
there.
nice to see you,
Hey, you as
and
well.
I'm looking forward to finding more about your piece. So, what is your creative process like? How do you start a piece, and what are your influences?
Uh, Interesting question. I'd say I usually probably start from like a sort of outer level and then work in. And that's actually been working pretty well for me. A lot of the works I've been doing lately have been sort of like more conceptual. So I'll spend a lot of time thinking about, how is this going to work in a piece of contemporary music? And then sort of after that, I get into something like figuring out like a structure for the work. I draw a lot, not very well, but I draw sort of like what I envision the structure of the work being like, and just kind of like anything that sort of comes to mind. And then from there, kind of like going in even further, and then like doing more of the detailed work, um, and then refining and refining and refining, of course.
So, do you start most of the time conceptually thinking about an idea, or do you sometimes just come up with musical material and the ideas come later? Does that happen?
It's a bit of both, I'd say. Usually, the work I've been doing recently has been more of a come up with an idea and then the musical material kind of starts to come. But I have had, a few situations where I come up with an idea, I start writing, and then the idea becomes something else. And that's always really fun because it's sort of like I discovered it in a way. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what it was really supposed to be. And when I got working, it just came out, you know?
Right. It's interesting you mentioned that you paint a little bit because as I was listening to your music, in one of the pieces, particularly called Storm, I
Mm.
was actually struck by your extremely creative sound palette, and I immediately imagined a Kandinsky painting where there's just so much color, it's so vivid, and uh, there are so many details. And do you think you are inspired by painting or other um,
Yeah.
artistic?
Absolutely. I mean, that particular work, I can see why it's a Kandinsky. That's pretty fitting, I think. But I don't think I had a specific work in mind. I think I more sort of had like like a style in mind, I guess, or more of like an atmosphere, maybe even.
What is your style?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer. I'd say it's pretty eclectic. Um, and I have a hard time pinning it down myself, or, when I get asked questions like that, I have a hard
Yeah,
time coming up with an answer. But I definitely say it's sort of like the sum of my, influences.
yeah. It's a very difficult question. I
Yeah.
myself find it hard to answer and define, especially because we live in a world where our when there are millions of influences and you just want to kind of absorb them all.
Yeah, for sure.
And what kind of music do you like? Because when I was listening to Phases of the Moon, a work that has been programmed by Esprit for a future concert, I was uh, really struck by the sonic scope of the piece, and it's for string orchestra. And I started to draw parallels with an Estonian composer. Perhaps you have heard of Erkki Sven,
No, I haven't actually.
who has a requiem. And so the way that you move your sound math for string orchestra reminded me of that. And it's quite difficult to write for string orchestra. How did you approach composing that piece?
Oh, so that was actually composed quite a while. Well, feels to me like quite a while ago. I was in my master's at the time,
Right.
and it was written for the string orchestra at the University of Toronto. But that was, I'd say, a pretty big turning point in my compositional life because I really struggled. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna write for string orchestra, and then on top of that, there wasn't going to be a whole lot of rehearsal time, so it was kind of like I need to write something that will be like technically not very difficult for the performers, but it's going to sound um, like it is, it's going to come off really well. So that was kind of, I had approached that and I was stuck for a very long time. And then it just seemed like one day it was like, um, the orchestra does these things that they can execute very easily. Like they'll do like col legno, but then the way it gets like layered and stuff, it comes off as a really beautiful effect, but you wouldn't think it was from something so, easily executed, right?
Yes.
And yeah, it was, like you said, inspired by sort of like these natural patterns. But one of them was Fibonacci, which I used in like the rate of growth of the ensemble. Um, and I guess you could say it was sort of a blend of structure and intuitive process. And I think that kind of comes out in that, these patterns translate really beautifully into music or rhythm or whatever, but then it's sort of blended with switching between, they'll be blending with like the harmonic series that the cello and the basses are doing, and then just between like something more free that is just something that I like.
So how do you apply the Fibonacci series, or in that particular piece especially?
In that one, so there's sort of like two ways. It starts off with one performer, and I guess I should also say that it's for 21 string players, and they're all individual parts. So one performer, and they're playing one, there's a quarter note, and then two performers, and then three. I guess I should kind of explain the Fibonacci series is basically first number, second number added together. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, etc. So it was kind of following this. The next one would come in and it would be playing whatever 2 times that rhythm was, but it would come in 2 measures after. So, and then the next one 3, the next one 5 after that. So it's like the rate of growth, but it's also the rate of growth of the individual rhythm too.
And the piece you're currently working on, your Esprit commission, that will be performed as soon as possible, as soon as we can. I know that you have been exploring the concepts of mindfulness uh, that are used in behavior therapy. And have you applied the Fibonacci series as well, or is this completely different?
No, I don't think this is going to have any kind of mathematical process. I don't think so.
How far along are you into composing this piece?
Well, I've made my little sketch of the structure, and then I've been working on the score for maybe the past 2 or 3 weeks. It's coming along. It's coming along really nicely, and I'm really excited in the direction that it's been going so far.
I see. How do you incorporate these concepts of mindfulness into a work, into your sound fabric?
Well, oh, so this particular one actually is based on a specific technique. And I think this really interested me because it's a technique that I guess is applied to dealing with like strong emotions. So it could be like anger, anxiety, I don't know, hopelessness, even further like addiction or something like that. But the idea was that no strong emotion is going to be felt for more than 20 minutes. And like, even in the moment, if you're just like, wow, this is the most horrible, overwhelming thing I've ever gone through. If you can just look at it and be like, you know, have you ever had a time where you've been raging angry for more than 20 minutes? No, it kind of peaks and then dissipates. So this specific technique is to just kind of like teach you to ride the peak out rather than sort of like succumbing to, I don't know, I sent my boss an angry email because it just feels so strong right now or something like that, you know? And I found that really interesting. When I thought about it, I was like, wow, like that's such a more manageable way to look at it rather than, you know, just like sitting with it and really feeling it. So there's this sort of like diagram and it looks like a wave and it has like, you know, trigger, stressor, peak, recovery. And then at the end of the wave, like you gain control of your emotions, like you're done riding the wave. And I was like, what if I could represent that in a work, but it sort of follows this arc in like real time. And it was also just the idea I wanted to do because, you know, you can kind of use it to like inform people about this specific technique in this case.
That's great. So how did you start discovering these ideas of mental health? And you mentioned that you were working with mental health treatment. And how did you arrive at the conclusion to involve yourself with this topic, especially to bring it through music?
Yeah, well, that's a big one, I guess. But it's sort of, obviously there's a bit of a personal connection. Well, more than a bit of a personal connection. But I'd moved to Toronto like 5 years ago. And the world was actually quite different 5 years ago. You know, things weren't as out in the open as they are right now. And that was the first time I struggled with my mental health in any kind of real way. And it was the first time, you know, I reached out for help for it. It was the first time I had started medication. But I found it very isolating because, you know, it was hard for me, even just to like, I was doing my master's at the time, even just to talk to my professors and say like, you know, like stuff's going on right now. Like I need a bit of an accommodation. But you know, since then I got more open about it. I talked with people and stuff like that. And it always really surprised me because when I was more open, other people would be more open. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then maybe like 2 years ago, I decided to start incorporating that into my creative practice. Mostly just because, you know, I think it's very worthwhile to have it out in the open, first of all. And, you know, even just like this work for Esprit, representing mental health treatment on an orchestral program, there are people who are going to feel heard by that. And there'll be people who, you know, see themselves in the work, I guess. And I think there's a lot of value to that.
Yeah, I definitely share this opinion. And I think Esprit's platform is perfect for exploring ideas to presenting whatever you're dealing with. And our audiences are very open and very welcoming. And I'm sure that your voice will be heard and will be shared by many other people. So I would like to thank you for being here, for talking about your music, Stephanie. And I am really looking forward to working with you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the piece that you composed for the orchestra.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. I'm
Thank
also
you
looking
very
forward
much.
to working with you.
And good luck.
Thank you.